The rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn gleamed under the sodium lamps like veins of molten silver, and Michael slammed the bar door behind him, his heart pounding as if he'd just outrun a ghost. "You can't just say that and walk away. Chris!" he shouted into the downpour, his voice cracking like thunder over the distant rumble of the subway. But Christopher was already vanishing into the night, his silhouette dissolving into the haze, leaving Michael drenched not just in water, but in the raw, unspoken ache of a friendship fracturing under the weight of secrets too heavy to hold. Michael stood there, fists clenched at his sides, the cold October rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead and soaking through his thin denim jacket. The words Christopher had hurled at him moments ago echoed in his skull like a bad hangover. "I've loved you since we were kids, Mike." Every joke, every touch, it wasn't nothing to me. It was supposed to be just another Friday night at the Rusty Anchor, their dive bar haunt in Williamsburg since college. Beers flowing, laughter cutting through the haze of cigarette smoke and indie rock playlists. Harmless flirting, that's what Michael had called it, the playful jabs, the lingering pats on the back, the way Chris's green eyes would crinkle when Michael teased him about his latest failed Tinder date. But now, as the door's bell jangled faintly behind him, Michael realized the flirtation had been a one-way street, paved with Chris's silent devotion. He wiped his face with a sleeve that did nothing to stem the flood, tasting salt on his lips, rain or tears, he couldn't tell. The street was alive with the indifferent pulse of New York. A yellow cab splashed past, horn blaring. A group of laughing millennials spilled out of a nearby taqueria, oblivious to the man unraveling 10 feet away. Michael wanted to chase after him, to grab Chris by the shoulders and demand, "Why now? Why ruin everything?" But his feet felt bolted to the cracked sidewalk, betrayal's first sting twisting in his gut. Not betrayal from Chris, no. This was something sharper, self-inflicted. How had he missed it? The way Chris always saved the stool next to him. The mixtapes slipped into his backpack during finals week back at NYU. The quiet vigils during Michael's messy breakups. Pushing off from the bar's faded brick facade, Michael started walking. No direction, just motion to drown the noise in his head. His apartment was only 6 blocks away. A shoebox walk-up in Bushwick where rent ate half his graphic design salary. But tonight it felt like a continent. The city that never slept was conspiring against him. Every puddle reflecting distorted fragments of his face. Wide blue eyes haunted, jaw set in futile defiance. He thought of their shared history, roots tangled deep in the soil of upstate New York summers. They'd met at 12, awkward boys at Camp Wawayanda. Michael, the city kid escaping his parents' endless arguments. Chris, the farm boy's son with calloused hands and a laugh that could coax fireflies from the dusk. Those summers had been their sanctuary. Bonfires where they'd whisper dreams of escaping small-town shadows, skinny dipping in the lake under star-pricked skies. Chris's arms slung casually over Michael's shoulders as they roasted marshmallows. Even then, Michael had felt the pull, a warmth he chalked up to brotherhood. But looking back through the rain-streaked lens of tonight, he saw the signs etched like graffiti on those memories. Chris's gaze lingering a beat too long, his voice softening when Michael's name was spoken. And Michael? He'd been blind, too wrapped in his own chaos. Coming out at 17 to a family that nodded politely but changed the subject. Chasing straight boys who treated him like a phase. Building walls higher than the Brooklyn Bridge. By the time he reached his stoop, the rain had eased to a drizzle, the world blurring into watercolor smears. Fumbling with his keys, Michael let himself in, the stairwell's fluorescent buzz a mocking welcome. His place was a testament to arrested development. Posters of obscure bands peeling from walls, a half-assembled IKEA bookshelf sagging under design magazines, a kitchenette where takeout containers outnumbered clean dishes. He stripped off his wet clothes, the chill seeping into his bones, and collapsed onto the futon that doubled as his bed. Sleep was a traitor, teasing at the edges but fleeing when he closed his eyes. Instead, memories flooded in, unbidden and vivid. He remembered the night they moved to the city together, fresh-faced 20-somethings hauling boxes up 5 flights in a heatwave. Chris had splurged on a 6-pack of craft IPAs, toasting to new beginnings with a grin that hid the fear in his eyes. They'd crashed on the floor, sweat slick and exhilarated, talking until dawn about conquering Manhattan. Chris had dreams of law school, a crusade against injustice that mirrored his father's union battles back home. Michael, the artist, sketched logos for startups that paid peanuts but fed his soul. They'd been each other's anchor, through job losses and heartbreak, the kind of friendship poets envy. But envy had no place in what Chris confessed tonight. It was love, raw, unfiltered, the kind that reshapes landscapes. Michael's phone buzzed on the coffee table, a lifeline he both craved and dreaded. The screen lit up with Chris's name. A simple text, "I'm sorry." Couldn't hold it anymore. Michael's thumb hovered, a digital precipice. Type back, fix it, or let silence swallow them whole. He typed, deleted, typed again, we need to talk. Tomorrow, sent. The whoosh of the message felt final. A door cracked open to whatever storm awaited. Morning came gray and unforgiving, the kind of November light that painted everything in shades of regret. Michael dragged himself to the shower, scalding water doing little to wash away the night's residue. He dressed in his go-to armor, faded jeans, a vintage Ramones tee, Doc Martens scuffed from too many aimless walks. Coffee from the bodega downstairs was bitter as his thoughts, each sip a reminder of Chris's favorite roast, the one they'd grind together on lazy Sundays. Work beckoned, a freelance gig designing menus for a trendy Soho bistro, but focus was a casualty. His laptop screen blurred, cursors mocking his stalled creativity. By noon, the text reply came, Prospect Park, 4 p.m. The boathouse. Neutral ground, their old thinking spot. Michael spent the afternoon pacing his apartment, replaying scenarios like a director cutting a film reel. What if he said the wrong thing? What if this fractured them irreparably? Friendship was his North Star. Love, for all its poetry, felt like quicksand. He grabbed his sketchpad on impulse, charcoal stubs worn from nights capturing Chris's profile in secret, lines he'd never shown, vulnerabilities he'd buried. The park was a riot of autumn decay, leaves carpeting paths in crimson and gold, joggers weaving through like threads in a tapestry. Michael arrived early, heart a drumbeat against his ribs, settling on a bench overlooking the lake. Ducks quacked indifferently. A busker strummed a melancholy folk tune on guitar. When Chris appeared, striding from the oak grove, Michael's breath caught. Tall and lean, with that mop of auburn hair perpetually windswept, Chris looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. Eyes shadowed, shoulders hunched under a wool peacoat. "Hey," Chris said, voice rough as gravel, sinking onto the bench without meeting Michael's gaze. The air between them hummed with unsaid words, thick as the fog rolling off the water. "Hey yourself," Michael replied, forcing levity that fell flat. "Rough night," Chris let out a humorless laugh, rubbing his jaw. Understatement. Look, Mike, I didn't mean to drop that bomb. It just built up. Years of it, like pressure in a fault line. Michael nodded, throat tight. I get that. But why now? After all this time? Chris's eyes finally lifted. Green depths stormy. Because you're moving on. That guy from the gallery opening last week. Ethan? You lit up talking about him. And I thought, if I don't say it, I'll lose you to someone who deserves you. The confession landed like a gut punch, stirring something unnamed in Michael's chest. A flutter, not fear, but possibility. Betrayal flickered too, not of Chris, but of his own blindness. Ethan was a flirt. Nothing more. But you've been there, right in front of me. Silence stretched, broken only by the lap of water on wood. Chris's hand twitched, as if to bridge the gap, then retreated. I know. And that's on me for not speaking sooner. But I couldn't watch you hurt anymore, not without trying. Michael's mind raced, fragments of their life collage whirling. Late-night diner runs after bar shifts, Chris nursing him through flu seasons with bad soup and worse jokes. The way Chris's laugh could pull him from despair's edge. Love had been there, woven into the fabric, and he'd taken it for granted. I need time, Michael said finally, voice barely above a whisper. To unpack this. Us. Chris nodded, pain etching lines around his mouth. Fair. But don't ghost me. Okay, that's not us. As Chris rose to leave, Michael caught his wrist, a touch electric, familiar yet new. Wait. Coffee? Now? Neutral ground 2.0. A tentative smile cracked Chris's facade. Yeah. I'd like that. They walked in companionable quiet to the park's edge cafe. Steam rising from paper cups like fragile peace flags. Over lattes, words tumbled, awkward at first, then freer. Chris spoke of stolen glances in dorm rooms, of deleting unsent love letters, of choosing friendship over risk. Michael listened, heart aching with retroactive tenderness, sharing his own fears of ruining the one constant in his nomadic life. By dusk, as they parted with a hug that lingered, Michael felt the fracture mending, not seamlessly, but with the honest grit of real connection. Back home, he opened his sketchpad, lines flowing for the first time that day, not logos, but portraits. Chris's eyes, capturing the love that had waited so patiently. But peace was fleeting. Days blurred into a tentative rhythm, texts resuming, brunches reclaimed, the flirtation now laced with awareness, electric undercurrents humming. Michael dated casually, testing waters, but Ethan faded like a bad sketch. Chris held back, honorable to a fault, but the air crackled with what-ifs. Then came the betrayal, sharp as shattered glass. It arrived via a mutual friend, Lena, over drinks at a midtown lounge. You hear about Chris? She said, swirling her martini, eyes wide with gossip's gleam. He's taking that clerkship in D.C. Starts next month. Big firms calling prestigious, but across the country. Michael's stomach dropped, the olive in his Gibson skewered like his composure. What? He didn't say. Lena shrugged. Keeps it close to the chest. Thinks it's best for everyone. After that night at the bar. You know, the bar. The confession. Chris, running, not chasing, but fleeing. Michael drained his drink, the gin burning a path to resolve. He wouldn't let geography rewrite their story. The train to DC rattled like Michael's nerves, a steel serpent burrowing under the Hudson, carrying him toward confrontation or closure. He'd bought the ticket on impulse, after Lena's bombshell, firing off a text to Chris, heard about DC. On my way. We talk in person. No reply, but the Reed receipt glowed like a dare. Now, hurtling south at 80 miles an hour, Michael second-guessed everything. The overnight bag crammed with clean socks and unresolved feelings, the playlist of Springsteen anthems Chris loved, a feeble olive branch. Amtrak's cafe car offered no solace, just overpriced coffee and strangers' stares. Michael sketched idly on a napkin, the locomotive's sway blurring lines into abstraction. Betrayal simmered, not hot rage, but a cold simmer. Chris, plotting escape without a word, as if their fragile thaw meant nothing. Yet beneath it, empathy stirred, Chris's history of sacrifice, always the giver, never the taker. Law school had been his armor, a suit of principles against a world that had once shunned his queerness with small-town whispers. They'd navigated that together, post-college, when Chris's father passed suddenly, a heart attack mid-harvest, leaving the family farm in debt's chokehold. Michael had flown upstate, held Chris through the funeral's sterile grief, their hands clasped in the back pew like lifelines. "You're my family now," Chris had murmured, voice muffled against Michael's shoulder. And Michael had believed it, even as he dated recklessly, seeking validation in arms that never stayed. Union Station loomed, a Beaux-Arts cathedral of marble and motion, disgorging passengers into DC's crisp winter bite. Michael emerged, collar turned against the wind, scanning the crowd for auburn hair. Chris waited by the escalators, hands jammed in coat pockets, expression a mask of resignation. Close, exhaustion carved hollows under his eyes, but that smile, crooked, genuine, flickered when their gazes locked. "You didn't have to come," Chris said, pulling him into a hug that smelled of wool and faint cologne, familiar as home. "Like hell," Michael muttered, clinging a beat too long. "Cab or walk?" "Walk." "Burn off the steam." Chris's tone was light, but tension coiled in his shoulders. They navigated the capital's grid, past monuments glowing under sodium halos, the National Mall a vast, empty stage for their drama. Words came haltingly at first, logistics of the job, a boutique firm specializing in LGBTQ+ rights, the kind of work that lit Chris's fire. "It's a chance to make a dent," he said, gesturing broadly. "Real impact, not just memos." Michael nodded, boots crunching frost-laced leaves. "Proud of you. But DC, that's a continent from Brooklyn. You were just gonna ghost." Chris stopped under a leafless cherry tree, breath clouding the air. "Not ghost. Protect. After I spilled my guts, I saw the panic in your eyes. Figured space would heal it. Let us stay friends. No weirdness." "Weirdness is already here," Michael shot back, voice rising. "You don't get to decide for both of us." "That's the betrayal, Chris, not the love, but the running." Chris winced, leaning against the trunk. "Fair hit. But Mike, I spent years loving you quietly, watching you light up for others, knowing I was the safe harbor, not the sail. This job. Selfish, yeah. But it's me choosing me for once." The admission hung, raw and revelatory. Michael stepped closer, the space between them shrinking to inches, charged like a live wire. And what if I want to be the sale? What if that night at the bar woke something in me too? Chris's eyes widened, green flecked with gold in the lamplight. Don't say that unless you mean it. I can't half heal again. I mean it. The words tumbled out, unscripted. Michael's hand finding Chris's, fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces long separated. Scared? Hell yes. But losing you to Beltway ambition? That's scarier. They stood there, palms pressed, the city's hum fading to a distant roar. Chris's thumb traced Michael's knuckles, a gesture small yet seismic. Then stay the night. Talk it through. No decisions. Just us. The firm that had recruited Chris put him up in a DuPont Circle guest house, a Victorian brownstone with creaky floors and fireplace charm. They ordered Thai from a spot Chris raved about, pad CEW spicy enough to match their tempers, spreading it on a scarred oak table by candlelight. Wine flowed, loosening tongues. Chris confessed the job offer had come months ago, accepted in a haze of post-confession despair. Michael admitted sketching Chris obsessively, portraits that captured the love he'd overlooked. Laughter crept in, tentative, over shared war stories. Michael's disastrous blind date with a Wall Street bro who quoted Ayn Rand, Chris's clerkship interview where he blanked on a landmark case. By midnight, sprawled on a threadbare rug before the fire, barriers crumbled. Remember Wawayanda? Michael murmured, head on Chris's thigh, the warmth seeping through denim. That storm night, tent leaking, you sang off-key to keep me calm. Chris's fingers carded through his hair. Gentle. You were terrified of thunder. Still are. Only when it shakes foundations. Michael tilted up, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable, soft at first, exploratory, tasting of lemongrass and Merlot. No rush, no conquest, just the deepening of a bond years in the making. Morning brought clarity, sunlight slanting through lace curtains, gilding their tangled limbs. Over coffee and croissants from a French bakery down the block, they mapped a path. Chris would defer the start date 6 months, test the waters of us. Michael, emboldened, pitched in on rent for a sublet, weaving their lives tighter. Back in New York, the rhythm shifted, dates disguised as hangouts, hands brushing in crowded subways, nights ending with goodnight kisses on fire escapes. Friends noticed, Lena toasting at their first official dinner with sly winks. But harmony bred hubris. Michael dove into work, landing a contract with a queer-owned apparel line, sketches blooming into campaigns that celebrated fluidity and fire. Chris prepped for the bar, flashcards littering their shared coffee table in the upgraded Bushwick 2-bedroom they'd snagged. Domesticity suited them. Grocery runs debating kale versus collards, movie marathons with Chris's head in Michael's lap, whispers of futures laced with law degrees and gallery shows. Yet shadows loomed. Michael's ex, Jordan, a charismatic photographer from his pre-Chris flings, resurfaced via email, inviting collaboration on a Pride exhibit. Miss your edge, the message read, laced with nostalgia's hook. Michael showed Chris, transparent, but the seed of doubt sprouted. It bloomed into conflict during a snow-dusted December, at a holiday party thrown by Michael's agency. Jordan was there, all charm and camera flashes, orbiting like a moth to flame. Mike, you look settled, he said, eyes flicking to Chris across the room, praising. Happy for you. The word stung. Paternalistic. Later, buzzed on eggnog, Michael vented to Chris in a cab home. He acts like I'm playing house. Like this us is temporary. Chris's jaw tightened, streetlights carving shadows on his face. And you? Ever feel that? The question landed like a slap. Michael recoiled. What? No. You're twisting it. Am I? Chris's voice cracked. You've been distant lately, work, sketches till dawn. Feels like you're hedging. Betrayal reversed. Michael's hurt flaring. Hedging? After DC? You're the one who almost bolted. The cab's warmth turned claustrophobic. They rode in silence to their door, the slam echoing recriminations. That night, separate sides of the bed yawned like chasms, sleep fractured by what-ifs. Dawn brought apologies, halting over burnt toast. I'm scared, Chris admitted, eyes red-rimmed. Of losing you to doubt. Michael pulled him close, heartbeat sinking. Then let's build trust, brick by brick. No running. Winter thawed into spring, their bond forging stronger in the forge of friction. They traveled upstate, revisiting Wawayanda, now a couple's retreat, ironic and healing. By the lake, under the same stars, Michael proposed a pact, vulnerability journals, pages swapped weekly, bearing souls without armor. It worked, mostly. Chris aced the bar. Michael's exhibit with Jordan, professional, boundaries firm, earned raves. Pride Month arrived, rainbows draping the city like banners of belonging. They marched hand in hand, Chris's sign reading Love Wins, but friendship forges it, Michael sketching the crowd's joy in real time. But climax brewed in July's swelter, a heat wave mirroring the pressure building. Chris's firm called, deferral denied, DC immediate or forfeit. The ultimatum shattered their idol. The kitchen fan whirred futilely against the humidity, stirring air thick as molasses, while Michael paced the linoleum, phone clutched like a grenade. Chris sat at the table, tie loosened, suit jacket draped over a chair, the uniform of a man who just fielded the call that could unravel them. They won't budge, he said, voice steady but eyes betraying the storm. It's now or never. Impact work, Mike. The kind that changes lives. Michael halted, hands raking through sweat-damp hair. And us? We're a life. Our life. The words hung, accusatory, the subtext screaming, choose me. Chris rose, bridging the gap, palms cupping Michael's face, thumbs brushing stubble, grounding. You're not a choice against. But this opportunity is what I've trained for. Fighting for kids like we were, scared and silenced. Empathy warred with ego, Michael's chest tight. He knew Chris's fire, born from his own coming-out scars. A high school principal who outed him to save face. A mother who prayed away the confusion. Law was Chris's sword, justice his shield. Yet selfishness clawed, stay. Build here, with me. They talked through the night, windows thrown wide to catch any breeze, takeout cooling untouched. Compromises floated, weekends in New York, video calls at dawn, but logistics loomed like thunderheads. Distance had felled lesser loves. Theirs, though rooted deep, wasn't invincible. Dawn painted the skyline in reluctant gold, and decision crystallized. Go, Michael said, throat raw. But promise we'll fight for this. No silent suffocation. Chris's kiss was fierce, a vow sealed in salt and sunrise. Every day, You're my why, Mike. The move was brutal. Boxes taped with finality, a U-Haul groaning under their shared life. Friends threw a send-off at the rusty anchor, toasts laced with melancholy. Lena hugged Chris tight. Don't be a stranger, counselor. Brooklyn's dimmer without you. Michael held it together till the taillights faded on the BQE, then shattered in the empty apartment, echoes mocking solitude. Work became refuge, designs sharper with ache's edge, but nights stretched endless. Calls with Chris were lifelines, laughter bridging miles, but latency betrayed. A joke landing flat, intimacy reduced to pixels. Fall semester started for Chris at Georgetown, nights blurred with casebooks and clinics. Michael visited first. DC's marble mausoleums a stark contrast to Brooklyn's grit. They wandered the tidal basin, leaves aflame, hands linked against the chill. Miss this? Chris murmured, nuzzling Michael's neck. The real you, not the screen. Nights in Chris's efficiency were feverish reconnection, bodies mapping familiar terrain, hearts sinking in whispers. But morning brought reality. Chris's internship at the firm, depositions demanding dawn departures. It's temporary, he assured, but doubt whispered otherwise. Thanksgiving upstate tested them, family farm sold, but ghosts lingered in the creak of porch swings. Michael's parents, ever polite, asked after your friend Christopher, the label a subtle barb. Chris fielded it with grace, carving turkey with steady hands. But later, in the guest room, tension simmered. They'll come around, Michael soothed, but Chris's silence spoke volumes. Christmas in New York was magic reclaimed. Tree strung with mismatched ornaments, chestnuts roasting on a hot plate. Gifts exchanged. Michael's leather-bound sketchbook for Chris, inscribed to the man who redraws my world. Chris's vintage Polaroid for Michael, loaded with film for stolen moments. But under tinsel, anxiety gnawed. Chris's firm hinted at permanence, partnership track gleaming. New Year dawned with resolutions and revelations. Over champagne in Times Square's crush, confetti raining like confetti tears, Chris pulled Michael aside. I've been thinking. DC's pulling. But you're home. What if I turn it down? Michael's heart soared, then plummeted. Don't. For me, it's balance, Chris countered. Fireworks blooming overhead. Us first, but fate, capricious, intervened. January's freeze brought news. The firm, facing budget cuts, rescinded the offer. Layoffs, Chris explained over a crackling line, voice hollow. Entry-level hit hardest. Relief warred with guilt in Michael. Selfish joy at Chris's return, shadowed by his partner's dashed dreams. Come home, he urged. We'll figure it. Chris arrived mid-blizzard. Train delayed. Face gaunt but eyes alight at Penn Station's chaos. Their reunion was raw, tears in the vestibule, cab ride blurred by kisses, apartment door barely shut before clothes scattered like snowdrifts. Spring bloomed tentative. Chris job hunting in New York, nonprofits, ACLU gigs, each rejection a bruise. Michael supported, freelance booming, but resentment brewed unspoken. Why chase justice if it costs us peace? Chris, ever the fighter, volunteered at legal aid, pro bono hours stacking like cordwood. Conflict crested in May, at a gala for queer youth advocacy, black tie amid Chelsea's glitter. Michael, in tailored velvet, sketched donors, Chris networked, suit crisp, charm on full. But an old colleague cornered Chris. DC was your shot, man. Wasted on hesitation. The barb struck deep. Later, in a cab's dim confines, Chris unloaded. He called me soft. For choosing love over ambition. Michael bristled. And? You're not soft, you're brave. But this city's eating you alive. Rejections piling like trash on the curb. Chris's eyes flashed. So what? I bail on purpose? Become the guy who settles. It's not settling. It's prioritizing. Michael's voice rose. Fists balled. Or am I the hesitation? Silence sliced deeper than words. The cab depositing them in frost. That night, words weaponized. Accusations of selfishness. Fears of entrapment. You flirt with stability like it's a cage, Chris accused. I need fire. Mike, not embers. Fire burns out, Michael retorted. We've been here before, running from what scares you most. Us. Real and rooted. Dawn found them spent. Apologies whispered over cold coffee. But fracture lingered, a hairline crack widening. Summer's heat amplified it. Chris landed a temp gig at a Brooklyn firm corporate. Soulless, but steady. Bridge job, he called it, but bitterness seeped. Michael threw himself into a solo exhibit. Unseen lines, portraits of queer resilience. Chris's face central. Unnamed but unmistakable. Opening night was triumph. Critics praised the tender ferocity, sales outpacing dreams. Chris stood beaming in the crowd, but his toast later, to seeing what's always been there, carried double edge. Betrayal arrived subtly, then swift. A leaked email from Chris's firm, forwarded anonymously to Michael. Christopher's reluctance cost us talent. DC Pivot was smart. Love's a distraction. The sender, Jordan, Michael's ex, now a gallery consultant, twisting knife with precision. Rage blinded Michael. Confrontation came at dawn. Chris still Abed. You vented to him? About us? Chris bolted upright. Sheets pooling. What? No, Jordan reached out weeks ago. Fishing for dirt. I shut it down. But screenshots showed more. Casual drinks mentioned. Needing space implied. Lies, Chris swore. But doubt poisoned. Trust eroded like coastline. Arguments escalating, doors slammed. Silences stretched. Michael retreated to sketches. Lines jagged with hurt. Chris to runs along the East River. Pavement pounding pulse. Climax shattered in August. A thunderstorm mirroring turmoil. Chris, packing for an impromptu upstate trip, space to think, confessed over thunder. I met someone. Coffee, nothing more. But it felt easy. No wait. The words eviscerated. Michael's world tilting. Betrayal, not external, but internal. Chris seeking solace in another's gaze. Easy, Michael echoed. Rain lashing windows. After everything, you're the runner after all. Chris's face crumpled. I'm broken, Mike. This city's grind. The rejections, us fighting shadows. I love you, but maybe we're poison. The door closed softly behind him. Finality in the click. Michael sank to the floor, sobs racking, the storm outside paling against inner deluge. Weeks blurred into a monochrome haze. Brooklyn's vibrancy leached to gray. Michael moved through motions, work deadlines met with mechanical precision. Friends' check-ins deflected with practiced smiles. The apartment, once sanctuary, echoed with ghosts. Chris's mug on the shelf, a half-read legal thriller dog-eared on the nightstand. He boxed them gently, stacking in the closet like sealed wounds, but memories defied containment. Lena dragged him to therapy, a queer-affirming practice in Park Slope. "You're grieving," the counselor, Raj, said gently, glasses perched on a kind face. "Betrayal's a death, mourn it." Sessions unearthed layers. Michael's fear of abandonment, rooted in parents' polite distance. The flirtation's comfort masking deeper longing. "You loved him too," Raj affirmed. "Question is, can you love yourself enough to heal?" Healing was jagged, starts and stutters. Michael journaled furiously, pages filling with unsent letters to Chris. Rants of hurt, pleas for understanding, sketches of what-ifs. He rejoined the gym, body reclaiming strength, endorphins dulling night's edge. A gallery offered a solo show extension. Unseen lines, fractured, channeling pain into art. Chris's silence was eloquent, a void sucking air. Mutual friends tiptoed. "He's in Rochester, crashing with family." No details, no bridges. Michael resisted stalking socials, deleting the app in a fit of resolve. Instead, he volunteered at the youth center where Chris once clerked, mentoring teens on Portfolio's ironic therapy, their stories mirroring his own hidden aches. Autumn deepened, leaves mirroring his turning inward. A call came mid-October, not from Chris, but his sister, Emily, voice warm as apple cider, laced with worry. "He's a mess. Mike won't talk, just works doubles at the diner. Says it's your fault, then his. Come up, for him, or you." Temptation warred with pride, but love stubborn, unextinguished won. Michael drove north, the thruway a ribbon of resolve, upstate's hills rising like judgment. Rochester greeted with crisp winds, the farm's ghost haunting the outskirts. Emily met him at a roadside inn, hugs fierce. "He's at the old quarry, our thinking spot. Be gentle." The quarry was a scar on the landscape, sheer granite walls cradling a turquoise pool, autumn vines draping like veils. Chris sat on a boulder, profile sharp against the gloaming, flannel shirt rumpled, beard thicker than memory. He didn't startle at footsteps, just sighed. "Em called you." "Yeah." Michael perched nearby, space respectful. Couldn't stay away. Chris's laugh was bitter. "Hero complex." "Look, Mike, I'm sorry. For the coffee guy, for doubting us." It was panic, not pursuit. Michael nodded, throat tight. "Hurts all the same. Felt like you chose easy over effort." "I chose fear." Chris's voice cracked, eyes meeting green depths raw. "Of failing you. The job loss gutted me. Arguments made me question if love was enough against the world." Words bridged the gap, confessions cascading. Chris's isolation in Rochester, shifts blending into numbness. Michael's exhibit success hollow without sharing. "I saw the reviews," Chris admitted. Proud. But it stung, your lines so alive. Mine stalled. Dusk deepened. Fireflies winking like hesitant stars. "What now?" Michael asked. Vulnerability a tightrope. Chris extended a hand. Tentative. "Start over? Slow. No assumptions." They drove back to the city together, Emily's blessing in packed Tupperware of pie. The apartment welcomed warily, boxes unpacked, Chris's mug reclaimed. Rhythm rebuilt cautiously, shared meals tentative, touches testing waters. Therapy extended to couple sessions. Raj mediating with wisdom. Betrayal heals through action, he counseled. Trust is rebuilt daily. Winter wrapped them in woolen grace. Chris tempeed at a non-profit. Passion reigniting in tenant rights cases. Small victories stacking like snowdrifts. Michael mentored at the center. His fractured show touring. Proceeds funding scholarships. Holidays healed. Upstate with Emily. Michael's parents thawing with tentative questions. How's Christopher's work? Progress in pronouns unspoken. But scars itched. Triggers lurking. A February storm trapped them indoors. Power flickering. Old arguments surfacing in candlelight. You still think I'm running? Chris accused. Voice edged. Michael paused, breathing through impulse. No. But I fear it. Journal it later. The tool worked. Pages swapped by firelight. Fears bared. Affirmations inked. Intimacy deepened. Not in passion's rush, but quiet profundity. Morning coffees with linked ankles. Walks where hands swung free. Spring heralded growth. Chris applied to a Brooklyn ACLU fellowship. Competitive, but aligned. Interviews loomed. Nerves frayed. Michael sketched affirmations on post-its, plastering the fridge. You are enough. We are enough. Acceptance came in April. Confetti of email ping. Celebration spilled into streets. Pizza on stoops. Beers at the Anchor. Toasts to resilience. To fault lines mended, Chris raised his glass. Eyes locked on Michael's. But humanism demanded nuance. Not all fractures seal flawless. Chris's fellowship demanded travel, Albany lobbying. Conferences in Atlanta. Distance tested anew. Calls crackling with fatigue. Michael, exhibit on the road. Felt the pull of independence. Flight solo. Crowds adoring his work. A June weekend in D.C. Ironic homecoming. Crystallized it. Chris presented at a symposium. Michael in audience. Pride swelling. Post-panel. Over Smithsonian strolls. They confronted the evolution. We're not the boys from camp anymore, Michael said. Lincoln Memorial looming like guardian. Stronger, but changed. Chris nodded, hand in his. And that's okay. Love isn't static, it's adaptive. Summer solstice brought a ritual. Wawayanda revisit. Tent pitched by the lake. No leaks this time. Bonfire crackled. Stories looped. Childhood dreams realized in twisted beauty. Under stars. Chris pulled a ring from his pack. Simple silver. Engraved scene. Not proposal. Promise. To keep choosing us. Through shifts and storms. Michael's yes was tear-streaked. Band slipping on like fate. Not end, but anchor. Yet life, ever the dramatist, scripted one final arc. Fall's cusp. Chris's case, a pro bono for a trans teen evicted, drew media fire. Conservative outlets twisted it, doxing threats raining. Stay home, Michael begged, but Chris's fire blazed. This is why. Silence lets them win. Vigil became norm. Police checks. Encrypted lines. Climax peaked in October. A rally turned ugly. Protesters shoving. Slurs flying. Chris shielded a kid. Elbow cracking on pavement. Michael, arriving frantic, found him in ER. Arm in sling. Eyes defiant. You're reckless, Michael railed. Fear lashing. For what? Glory. Chris's grip tightened on his hand. For future U.S. For boys like we were. The hospital's hum faded as understanding dawned. Love's humanism in sacrifice. Not for martyrdom, but meaning. Michael stayed, sketching bedside vigils, turning pain to purpose. Recovery bonded them deeper. Chris's cast signed with Teen's Sharpie heart. Michael's exhibit donating proceeds to legal funds. Threats ebbed. Case 1, eviction halted. Precedent set. Winter returned. Softer. They adopted a rescue mutt. Luna. Fur like Chris's hair. Chaos a joyful counterpoint. Holidays blended families. Michael's parents hosting. Awkward questions yielding to toasts. To chosen kin, his dad ventured. Growth glacial but real. New Year. Rooftop under fireworks. Chris whispered. Years carried alone, now shared. Michael smiled. Ring glinting. And still flirting harmlessly? Always, Chris grinned. Keeps it alive. The years unfolded like a well-worn sketchbook. Pages curling at edges but rich with ink. Lines of laughter. Smudges of strife. Colors bleeding into unexpected hues. By their 5th anniversary, the Bushwick apartment had evolved. Walls lined with Michael's rotating exhibits. Shelves bowed under Chris's case law tomes. Luna's bed a throne by the radiator. They'd traded the futon for a queen. Sheets tangled nightly in rituals of reaffirmation. Whispers over wine. Bodies mapping scars both visible and veiled. Chris's fellowship bloomed into tenure at the ACLU. His name whispered in activist circles. Briefs arguing for marriage equality expansions. Anti-discrimination shields. Media dubbed him the Quiet Crusader, a title he shrugged off with that crooked smile, crediting Michael. My muse draws the battles I fight. Michael, gallery repped now, toured coasts, LA openings where queer icons bought his pieces, Boston retrospectives unpacking love's architecture. Success brought suitors' shadows, flirtations at after-parties, emails laced with admiration, but fidelity was canvas, unwavering. Conflict, though tamed, simmered in subtleties. A 2028 winter, Chris buried in a landmark case, challenging estate's bathroom bill, meant weeks of hotel lobbies, Michael's bed cold. Loneliness crept, amplified by a solo trip to Provincetown, where waves crashed like unresolved choruses. A bar encounter, a charming writer, eyes like sea glass, tempted confession's edge, but Michael's ring grounded him. Home. He confronted Chris over Skype's lag. I need you here. Not a hologram. Chris's face pixelated with regret. This case, it's for artists like you, safe in studios without fear. But concession came, therapy refreshers, date nights calendared like depositions. Betrayal's echo surfaced in spring. Jordan's ghost reincarnate. A scathing review in Art Forum. Anonymous but scented with spite. O'Leary's romance reeks of domesticity's saccharine trap. Michael recognized the phrasing. Jordan's old barbs. Confrontation via email yielded denial, but wound reopened trust seam. They mended at Wawayanda. Annual pilgrimage now tradition. Tent upgraded. Esmore's gourmet with sea salt. By firelight, Chris read Michael's unsent letter aloud. Voice steady. Fear you'll wake and see me as anchor. Not sail. Response, his own vow. Etched in ash. You're both. We steer together. Summer brought levity. A road trip cross-country. Route 66 in reverse. Chasing sunsets from Chicago Dives to Santa Fe Adobe. Detours honored routes. Upstate farm visit. Emily's now a B&B. Michael's childhood suburb. Awkward lunch with parents. Progress in Dad's handshake lingering. Proud of your path, son, he said. Words waited. In Joshua Tree, under desert stars vast as possibility, they made love slow and sacred, sand whispering secrets, bodies attuned to Earth's pulse. Dawn, over coffee black as night, Chris proposed formally. Knee in dust, ring upgraded, gold band with inset emerald. For the green in your fight. Michael's yes echoed canyons, tears carving trails. Wedding planning was farce and fervor. Brooklyn loft venue. Guest list eclectic. Activists rubbing elbows with gallery elites. Lena officiating with wit sharp as cake knife. Vows exchanged under string lights. Michael's, you saw me before I saw myself. Thank you for the mirror. Chris's, in your lines, I found my justice. Together, we redraw the world. Honeymoon in Maine, lobster shacks, cliff walks, fog-enshrouded intimacy. Return thrust them into routine refined, joint bank for the brownstone down payment. Therapy as maintenance. Luna's puppy sibling, a terrier named Sketch. But drama's thread pulled taut in 2030. Chris's case reaching Supreme Court, oral arguments in D.C. Nation watching. Michael flew down, courtroom gallery tense as wire. Chris's voice, measured passion, swayed justices, whispers of victory hummed. Betrayal struck post-ruling, upheld, jubilant presser mobbed. A colleague, ambitious paralegal named Theo, overstepped, congratulatory hug lingering, Michael's periphery catching the lean-in. Jealousy flared, unfounded but fierce, hotel room confrontation. Flirting? In our moment, Chris recoiled. Projection, Mike. From your art world's vultures. Words escalated. Hurts hurled. Michael's touring absences. Chris's workaholic drifts. Door slammed. Michael storming mall's length. Monuments mocking monumentality. Reconciliation came midnight. Lincoln's shadow. Text sinking. I'm scared of losing the fire. Chris, me too. Meet, embrace under reflecting pool. Ripples mirroring mended resolve. We're human, Michael murmured. Flaws and all. Post-victory glow faded into fatigue. Burnout loomed. They sabbatical-ed summer. Upstate cabin rental. No Wi-Fi. Days of wood chopping. Lake swims. Nights storytelling. Chris confessed deeper scars. Father's unspoken pride. Masking homophobia's hurt. Michael shared art's imposter syndrome. Success's hollow echo. Fall rebirth. Chris mentored at NYU. Michael's masterclass on queer narratives. Community wove tighter. Youth center expansions. Funded by exhibit sales. Climax whispered in 2032. Health's thief. Michael's diagnosis. Early lymphoma. Caught routine scan. World tilted. Brooklyn's bustle blurring. Chris's vigil was steel-wrapped tenderness. Chemo drives. Soup rotations. Laughter amid nausea. Betrayal's twist. Michael's withdrawal. Pushing Chris away. Don't watch me fade. Chris's refusal. We're in this sketch. Start to smudge. Treatment's gauntlet forged unbreakable. Wigs wacky as Luna's fur. Hospital sketches morbidly humorous. Remission dawned spring 2033. Bells rung. Hugs communal. Humanism bloomed in afterglow. Michael's memoir graphic novel. Carried lines. Chronicling love's endurance. Bestseller status secondary to lives touched. Chris's book. Justice intimate. Paired policy with personal Forward by Michael. A decade marked. Brownstone, there's garden plot yielding tomatoes. Walls echoing children's laughter. Adoption talks tentative. Futures fluid. One evening. Porch swing creaking. Chris's head on Michael's shoulder. Harmless flirting. That bar night. Best bomb dropped. Michael chuckled. Fingers tracing ring. Revealed what was always there. Stars wheeled. City hummed. A tapestry woven of drama. Emotion. Romance's quiet fire. Humanity's resilient thread. Aging graced them unevenly. Silver threading hair like comet tails. Lines etching faces with stories' weight. By 2040, the brownstone stood sentinel in gentrified Bushwick. Solar panels glinting. Garden a riot of heirloom blooms. Chris's tomatoes triumphant. Michael's wildflowers nodding in breeze. Luna long gone. Buried under the oak they planted her year. Sketch. Gray-muzzled. Snoozed on the sun porch. Ears twitching at phantom squirrels. Careers crested then plateaued. Michael's galleries nationwide. Retrospectives in MoMA hailing. The chronicler of quiet revolutions. He taught sporadically. Voice gravelly but resonant. Students hanging on tales of love as activism's core. Chris, partner at the firm, argued less but influenced more. Policy whispers shaping legislatures. Op-eds in the Times decrying complacency. We've won battles, he'd say at fundraisers. Arm around Michael. But vigilance is love's verb. Family expanded organically. Foster placements testing waters. Then Theo, not the paralegal, but a bright-eyed trans teen, 16 and fierce, placed after his rally rescue years back. Adoption sealed with court tears. Theo's artwork joining Michael's walls. Raw strokes of identity claimed. Parenting's drama unfolded in increments. Theo's coming out redundant but celebrated. First crush heartbreaks over ice cream vigils. College apps fraught with legacy's shadow. You're enough without our names, Chris assured. But pride swelled at Theo's NYU acceptance, full circle. Conflict revisited in subtleties. Theo's activist fire mirroring young Chris. Clashes over risks. Rallies are safe now, Theo argued. Chris's caution born of eras past. Michael mediated. Sketches capturing the triad's tensions. Resolutions in family therapy's gentle forge. Betrayal specter loomed once more. 2045. A leaked memo from Chris's firm. Cost-cutting whispers targeting legacy hires. Ageism's sting bit deep. Chris, at 52, felt obsolescence's chill. Am I fading? He confided one rain-lashed night, bourbon in hand. Michael pulled him to the studio, flipping through decades' portfolios. Fading? You're etched eternal. Job hunt yielded advisory role. Consulting for NGOs. Travel light. Home anchored. Climax crested gently. 2048. Michael's retrospective at the Whitney. Lifelines. Canvases spanning youth to now. Chris's portrait central. Titled carried. Opening night. Crowd hushed. Theo's speech. Voice steady. Dad Mike taught me lines connect. Dad Chris. They defend. Post-reception. Hotel suite overlooking Hudson. Chris knelt anew. Not ring, but letter. Yellowed stationery from their bar confession night. Unsent words of love preserved. You carried me then, he read. I carry you always. Tears mingled. Bodies familiar yet wondrous. Aging's map navigated with reverence. Climax not explosion but deepening wave. Epilogue's humanism unfurled in quiet. 2050. Wayanda's lake shore. Theo's wedding to his partner. A soft launch under tense. Emily toasting. Michael's parents frail but present. Hands clasped. Vows echoed theirs. Resilience. Chosen sight. Later. Bonfire low. Chris and Michael slipped away. Hands linked as at 12. Harmless flirting. Michael mused. Embers glowing. Revealed eternity, Chris replied. Kiss salt-kissed by lake mist. Stars above. Unhurried. Witnessed. A story not ended, but continued. In lines unseen but indelible.